The relationship between David and Jonathan in the Old Testament is often cited as one of the most compelling examples of true friendship and loyalty. Their bond, as depicted in 1 Samuel 18, exemplifies the depth of a relationship that transcends familial ties and societal expectations. In 1 Samuel 18, we are introduced to the characters of David, a young shepherd who has just slain Goliath and gained favor with King Saul, and Jonathan, the son of King Saul. Despite their differing backgrounds and circumstances, the two men form a genuine and enduring friendship that is marked by mutual respect, trust, and support. One of the key aspects of David and Jonathan's bond is their unwavering commitment to each other. Jonathan recognizes David's bravery and loyalty to God, and he selflessly offers his support and protection to David, even in the face of his father's jealousy and hostility. In turn, David consistently honors and respects Jonathan, recognizing his noble character and unwavering friendship. Their bond is also characterized by a deep emotional connection. When Jonathan sees David's valor and godliness, he is deeply moved and forms a covenant with him, expressing his desire to support and be loyal to David. This covenant is a testament to the depth of their friendship and the emotional impact that it has on both of them. Furthermore, David and Jonathan's relationship is a source of inspiration and encouragement. Their loyalty and support for each other serve as a model for genuine friendship and selfless love. Their bond transcends personal ambition, societal pressures, and even familial expectations, standing as a powerful example of the power of true and enduring friendship. The story of David and Jonathan in 1 Samuel 18 teaches us valuable lessons about the importance of loyalty, support, and emotional connection in relationships. Their unbreakable bond is a testament to the power of genuine friendship and serves as an example for all of us to cultivate and cherish deep, meaningful connections with others. Before we get started, let's give out a special thanks shout out to a subscriber, Strar 24, 1.46k subscribers. Verse 18. And it came to pass, when he had made an end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Saul took him that day, and would let him go no more home to his father's house. For then Jonathan and David made a covenant, because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was upon him, and gave it to David and his garments, even to his sword, and to his bow, and to his girdle. 1. How did Jonathan treat David? Why might he have treated David like this? 2. What can we learn from Jonathan in this passage? 3. How would a typical heir apparent to the throne have viewed David? 2. What was atypical about Jonathan? 5. What did Jonathan do to show his commitment to David? 6. What principles can we apply to our own lives? 2. Jonathan loved David as himself. This is a real-life example of loving your enemies as yourself. David would be naturally assumed to be the enemy of Jonathan. That is how Saul treated David. But Jonathan seems to have asked the question, why should he be my enemy? He did not treat him as an enemy, but treated him as a friend, and therefore they were friends. Application. We may have competitors who are out to get our position, job, or promotion. Even so, we should surrender to God's sovereignty and not be hostile toward those people. Our job is to love, not to judge. Verse 5-16. 5. And David went out whithersoever Saul sent him, and behaved himself wisely. And Saul set him over the men of war, and he was accepted in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. And it came to pass as they came, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women came out of all cities of Israel, singing and dancing, to meet King Saul, with tabrets, with joy, and with instruments of music. And the women answered one another as they played, and said, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. 8 days. And Saul was very wroth, and the saying displeased him, and he said, They have ascribed unto David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed but thousands, and what can he have more but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day and forward. 10. And it came to pass on the morrow that the evil spirit from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied in the midst of the house. And David played with his hand, as at other times. And there was a javelin in Saul's hand. 11 And Saul cast the javelin, for he said, I will smite David even to the wall with it. And David avoided out of his presence twice. 12 And Saul was afraid of David, because the Lord was with him, and was departed from Saul. 13 Therefore Saul removed him from him, and made him his captain over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. 14 And David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. 15 Wherefore when Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of him. 16 But all Israel and Judah loved David, because he went out and came in before them. 1. What role or roles did David have in Saul's kingdom? 2. What do we learn about David in this chapter as he fulfills his various responsibilities? Through. How did the common people view David? How about the nobility? What does this show us about David? 4. How did Saul respond to the praises people were heaping on David? What can we learn about Saul from his response? Contrast the response of Saul with the response of Jonathan. A. What was the exact reason Saul was suspicious of David? 6. What does it mean that an evil spirit from God came upon Saul? How did he act when this happened? 7. What did he try to do to David? How did David respond to these attempts on his life? Did he defend himself? Did he get revenge? Did he flee the country? Why or why not? A. What was going on behind the scenes of all of this intrigue? 12. What does this teach us about God? Why was David prosperous? How can we be successful? One, the people praise David. Here we see that the hearts of the people in the kingdom begin to turn toward David. He was popular. People admired his bravery. God used David to bring about great victories for Israel. Even though Saul was king, people ascribed more glory and credit for the victories to David. In fact, the people should have recognized that it was God who used David to bring about the victories, but perhaps they were too short-sighted to see this. This newfound fame would prove to be an important crossroads for David. How would he respond to this fame? Would he try to leverage this popularity into a higher position? Would he try to take things into his own hand and stage a coup, much like Absalom did many years later? Pay careful attention in the rest of the chapter to observe David's character and how he responds to the praise from the people. 2. Saul becomes suspicious. Saul was a prideful person. He wanted the glory and the credit for himself. It wasn't enough for him to be king. He valued respect and praise much like the Pharisees during the time of Jesus. He should have been happy with the victory. But we see his selfishness come out because he cares more about his image than the welfare of the nation. This is the mark of a poor ruler. Application. Is our image important to us? Do we get upset if someone else receives praise? Do we crave attention and praise for the things we have accomplished? We need to remember that pleasing God is more important than pleasing man. Our image is not important. If it was Jesus would have been born in a manger and hung naked a cross. 3. An evil spirit from God. According to God's sovereign plan, he permitted an evil spirit to come and bother Saul. This, in effect, weakened Saul's kingdom from the inside out. David's sterling reputation was allowed to glow even more in contrast to Saul's increasingly dark ravings and suspicions. We know that God is not the author of evil, but in his sovereignty, he does even use evil instruments to accomplish his good plans. 4. David's music. David was a musician and a poet, not only a warrior. His music was generally a calming influence on Saul. 5. David escapes Saul. In verse 11 we see that Saul attempts to murder David twice, but both times David escapes. This will be a key storyline over the next few chapters. Interestingly, David does not yet flee the country or permanently retire from the court. Neither does he attempt to speed God up or enact revenge. We see David exercising great patience and restraint. Only a person with tremendous faith in God would be willing to stay at a place that seemed so very dangerous. David knew that God would protect him and fulfill his promise to him. 6. Saul was afraid of David. It is amazing that Saul was afraid of David, but there is not an indication that David was afraid of Saul. Saul was one trying to kill David. So why he afraid, but not David? The difference is their faith in God. David believes in God and knows God is on his side, while Saul's faith is gone and replaced by doubt and dark suspicions. Verse 12 makes it clear that God had deserted Saul, but was with David. In the next couple of chapters, we see Saul desperately clinging to his kingdom, but God ripping it away. At the same time, David is patiently waiting for God's timing, while God slowly brings the kingdom into his hands. Just like the last chapter, we see the contrast between believing in God and believing in yourself. 7. David continued to prosper. If God is with you, what can man do to you? Saul set himself against David and did everything in his power to limit David's opportunities. He tried to kill David. He tried by his own hand and by the hand of the Philistines. Nothing he did worked because God was with David. Application. Do not fear man. Psalm 118:6. Do not fear your boss, teacher, parents, or relatives. They may pressure you. They may set themselves against you for evil, like Joseph's brothers did. But if you faithfully obey God, you can know that God has a good plan for you that no person can thwart. See Isaiah 14:27. Before we move forward, let's give a special thanks, shout out to a subscriber, Har Har Mahadev Motivational Video, SSDMV. Verse 17:19-17. And Saul said to David, Behold my elder daughter Merab, her will I give thee to wife. Only be thou valiant for me, and fight the Lord's battles. For Saul said, Let not mine hand be upon him, but let the hand of the Philistines be upon him. 18. And David said unto Saul, Who am I? And what is my life, or my father's family in Israel, that I should be son-in-law to the king? 19. But it came to pass at the time when Merab Saul's daughter should have been given to David, that she was given unto Adriel the Maholathite to wife. Verse 20-22. 20. And Michal Saul's daughter loved David, and they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. 21. And Saul said, I will give him her, that she may be a snare to him, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. Wherefore Saul said to David, Thou shalt this day be my son-in-law in the one of the twain. Swau. And Saul commanded his servants, saying, Commune with David secretly, and say, Behold, the king hath delight in thee, and all his servants love thee. Now therefore be the king's son-in-law. Verse 23-25, 23. And Saul's servant spake those words in the ears of David. And David said, Seemeth it to you a light thing to be a king's son-in-law, seeing that I am a poor man, and lightly esteemed? 24. And the servants of Saul told him, saying, On this manner spake David. 25. And Saul said, Thus shall ye say to David, The king desireth not any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines, to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. Verse 26-28, 26. And when his servants told David these words, it pleased David well to be the king's son-in-law, and the days were not expired. 7. Wherefore David arose and went, he and his men, and slew of the Philistines 200 men. And David brought their foreskins, and they gave them in full tale to the king, that he might be the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal his daughter to wife. Chauntouris. And Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal Saul's daughter loved him. Verse 29-30, 29. And Saul was yet the more afraid of David, and Saul became David's enemy continually. 30. Then the princes of the Philistines went forth, and it came to pass after they went forth, that David behaved himself more wisely than all the servants of Saul, so that his name was much set by. One, why did Saul offer David his daughter in marriage, when that could only help David's case to ascend the throne? What logical mistake did Saul make? 2. How did David respond? What can we learn from his response? 3. Why did Saul not fulfill his promise? 3. Why did Saul agree to give Michal to David? What was his secret plan for Michal? 3. Why was this offer made in secret? 22. 6. Why did David respond the same way again? 7. How do you think of the bizarre dowry request? Was David right or wrong to do this? Why? 8. What is the conclusion in this chapter about David's behavior? cried, "How can we be wise and prosper like David?" 1 Saul is a liar. His character is shown as weak. He used his daughter to try to entice David to fight more battles and hopefully die in one of them. When David didn't die, he broke his promise and gave his daughter to someone else. 2 verse 18-23. David maintains his humility. David does not become prideful with his successes. Here was a ripe opportunity to increase his image and prestige and lay a claim to the throne. But David is genuinely humble. He doesn't view himself as a noble, and he is not seeking after those types of rewards. At the same time, we see David's wisdom. If he quickly accepted Saul's invitation, it would have served to prove to Saul that David was after the kingdom and was very ambitious. 3. Saul uses his daughter to try to hurt David. This is a man who ignores all boundaries. He hates David so much he is willing to use even his own daughter to hurt him. She loves David, so hurting him would hurt her. Saul doesn't care. 4. The dowry is killing Philistines. Israel was at war. War is something David was starting to know a lot about. He didn't think about the politics and the scheming, but he could go and fight. He was good at it. He went above and beyond what Saul had requested. 5. How do you think of bringing back the foreskins of the Philistines? We should note that this is narrative history. This is recording what happened, and we should not take this as an endorsement or a suggestion to behave like this. 6. David behaved more wisely than all the servants of Saul. God was with him. Before we end this, I would like to give another special thanks shout out to another subscriber, Smile, Live, Laugh, Love, the 48 Tour, Faith Over Fear, Hope. We want to help you study the Bible, obey the Bible, and teach the Bible to others.